عليك يا رسول الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا حبيب الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا نبي الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا نور الله. फरमान मुस्तफा सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम नियतुल मुमिन खैरुम मिन अमलिही, मुसलमान की नियत उसके अमल से बेहतर है। प्यारे बिज़नेसमैन भाई और अच्छी अच्छी नियतें फरमाने अल्लाह की निगाह पाने और सवाब कमाने के लिए अव्वल से आखिर इज्तिमा पाक में शरीक रहेंगे इंशाअल्लाह। जब कुरान पाक की तिलावत की जाए तो कुरान पाक सुनना फर्ज है और खूब तवज्जो के साथ कुरान पाक की तिलावत समाप्त करवाएं। इधर उधर देखने से, बातें करने से वो हकीकी बरकतें जो है वो ज़ाहिर होने का अंदेशा है। इसलिए कोशिश फरमाएं कि जब कुरान पाक की तिलावत की जाए तो खूब तवज्जो के साथ अपने रब का कलाम सुने। सल्लु अलल हबीब सल्लल्लाहु तआला अलैहि मुहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम। जो इस्लामी भाई बाहर खड़े हैं, दरवाजे में खड़े हैं, उनसे भी गुजारिश है कि बराए मदीना मस्जिद के अंदर तशरीफ ले आए ताकि इज्तिमा पाक की जब तिलावत कलाम पाक से आगाज़ किया जाए तो सबको बरकतें मिलें। أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور الذي خلق سبع سماوات أمن هذا الذي هو جواد لكم ينصركم من دون الرحمن إن أهدى أمن يمشي سويا على صراط مستقيم قل هو الذي أنشأكم وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون قل هو الذي ذرأكم في الأرض وإليه تحشرون ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين قل إنما العلم عند الله وإنما أنا نذير مبين فلما رأوه زلفة سيئت وجوه الذين كفروا وقيل هذا الذي كنتم به تدعون قل أرأيتم إن أهلكني الله ومن معي أو رحمنا فمن يجير الكافرين من عذاب أليم قل هو الرحمن آمنا به وعليه توكلنا فستعلمون من هو في ضلال مبين قل أرأيتم إن أصبح ماؤكم غورا فمن يأتيكم بماء
दूसरी पावर लगानी
معين
एक्सटेंशन लगा के ना लाइट लगाएंगे
الله رب العالمين آمنت بالله صدق الله العظيم صلوا على الحبيب
صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله سلم عليك يا حبيب الله
इधर सब हम मदनी चैनल वाले हैं हमें एंगल पे नहीं लगा
यार ये मदनी
मैं
सुनने वाले
यहाँ से इजी होगा ना आपको भी हमें एंगल नहीं लगा सकता गलत एंगल हमारा फोन का
हुआ है ना اس صورت نو میں جانا تھا اس صورت نو میں جانا تھا جانان کے جانے جہانا تھا جانان کے جانے جہانا تھا سچ آقا تیرا دی میں شانا سچ آقا تیرا دی میں شانا جس شان تو شانا سب بڑی سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ وہ خدا نے ہے مرتبہ تجھ کو دیا وہ خدا نے ہے مرتبہ تجھ کو دیا نہ کسی کو ملے نہ کسی کو ملا نہ کسی کو ملے نہ کسی کو ملا کے کلام مجید نے کھائی شاہ کے کلام مجید نے کھائی شاہ تیرے شہر و کلام و بقا کی قسم تیرے شہر و کلام و بقا کی قسم تو ابروں کا سر مثال دی سر تو ابروں کا سر مثال دی سر جے تینوں کے میزارے تیر چھوٹن جے تینوں کے میزارے تیر چھوٹن لبا سرکان کے لالے امن لبا سرکان کے لالے امن جیتے قدموں دیدیا ان لڑیاں لبا سرکان کے لالے امن جیتے قدموں دیدیا ان لڑیاں سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ تیرا مسند ناز ہے عرش بری تیرا مسند ناز ہے عرش بری تیرا محرم راز ہے روح امی تیرا محرم راز ہے روح امی تو ہی سرور ہر دو جہاں ہے شاہ تو ہی سرور ہر دو جہاں ہے شاہ تیرا مثل نہیں ہے خدا کی قسم تیرا مثل نہیں ہے خدا کی قسم تیرا مثل نہیں ہے خدا کی قسم سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ سبحان اللہ یہی کہتی ہے بلبل باغ جینا یہی کہتی ہے بلبل باغ جینا کہ رضا کی طرح کوئی سحر بیاں کہ رضا کی طرح کوئی سحر بیاں نہیں ہند میں واصف شاہ خدا نہیں ہند میں واصف شاہ خدا مجھے شوقی طبعی رضا کی قسم مجھے شوقی طبعی رضا کی قسم سبحان اللہ 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 صلی اللہ علیہ
صلوا على الحبيب توبوا إلى الله صلوا على الحبيب
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen. Amma ba'd, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Salatu wassalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. Wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Nabi Allah. Please also repeat after me. Nawaitu sunnat al-aidika. My dear brothers, whenever you're blessed with the opportunity to enter the house of Allah Azza wa Jalla, the masjid, first and foremost you must realize that Allah Azza wa Jalla has blessed you. You're very, very lucky that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you the ability to come to His house. And you should thank Allah Azza wa Jalla that you are here today. That for every one Muslim that is here in the masjid today, there's probably thousands that Allah Azza wa Jalla has not given you the ability to come here. But in coming to the house of Allah, if you can only try and enter according to the sunnah of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would always enter with his right foot. He would then recite the dua for entering the masjid. And our pious predecessors have also said that when you enter the masjid, if you make the intention for nafli taqaf, and the duration that you spend in the masjid will be written in your accounts, that you spend that time in nafli taqaf. Hence the reason I asked you to say, nawaitu sunnat al-aidika. This is the intention for nafli taqaf. Whatever time you can make that intention in any language, you can make it in Arabic, you can make it in English, you can make it in Punjabi, in Urdu, Pashto, or make it in your heart. But by making this intention, the duration that you spend in the masjid, it will be written in your book of deeds, that you spend that time in nafli taqaf. For example, I have my PC tablet here, I go into the masjid. When I come back into pick it up, I make the intention, and for that time that it takes me to walk here, to take it and take it out, it will be written in my book of deeds that I spent this time in nafli taqaf. So a small amount of effort, but inshallah, a huge amount of reward. May I remind you to eat, to drink, and to sleep in the masjid is forbidden. But if you make this intention, then all of these things become allowed for you, and you get the reward as well. We're in the month of Milad, the month in which we celebrate the coming of the mercy to all the worlds. And whenever you listen to a speech of the Prophet, they will always tell you a blessing of reciting the Prophet from the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you've probably heard them, if you come to the Ishmael, you've probably heard many, many blessings of reciting the Prophet. But have you ever thought about them? Because if you really understand the blessings of reciting the Prophet, then you'll understand the position, the maqam, and the authority that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has. Today I'm going to give you an essence here that whoever recites salat upon me, I, the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 1,000 times a day, he will not die until he has seen his place in paradise. Just think about this. It's going to work about it. Just think about it. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying this. That if someone recites the Prophet upon me 1,000 times a day, Allah Azza wa Jal will not allow that person to die until he has seen his place in paradise. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has the authority to say this. This is the thing that we need to understand, that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has this authority. If I was to say to the brother here that the cameraman, if he gives me salam, can someone make me a cup of tea? It wouldn't happen. I don't have that authority. I don't have that authority. But when the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you recite the Prophet upon me with 3 times during the day and 3 times during the night with love and devotion, Allah Azza wa Jalla will forgive all the sins that you committed during the day and all the sins that you committed during the night. This is the authority. You need to understand this. You need to understand that this is the authority, the maqam, and the status of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That he is making this order. And when we realize, when we study the life of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we see all of these things, we start to understand the status and the maqam that he had. You know, we are told that on the day of judgment, that people will go from prophet to prophet, and they will ask for them to intercede, and none of them will be able to intercede, except the final Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The final messenger, Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he will be the person that will intercede. Why do we need a question? The day of judgment, the setting up of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to intercede for us on that day, shows us the status and the maqam that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has. So all of these things, when you study our deen, when you study all of the things involved in it, you understand the maqam and the status and the Prophet that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has in our lives. But in the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we also need to understand his character. And today, in this very, very short video, I'm going to talk a little bit about one of his aspects of his character. It is stated once that he bought a camel off a Bedouin. And he said to the Bedouin that I exchanged this for one musk of dates. A musk is the size of around 540 pounds weight of date. So the deal was done. And the Prophet of Allah took the camel, but when the Bedouin came to the appointed place where the dates were supposed to be, they were not there. They were not there, for whatever reason they were not there. And so he came. He came to the Prophet of Allah and complained. He said that I have been cheated. I have lost out here. And when the companions saw this, that a person, how dare he say to the Prophet of Allah that he has been cheated, and they got angry. They got angry, obviously they got angry to the love and respect that they had. But the Prophet of Allah calmed them and said, he has a right to speak. He has a right to speak whatever you say. And he explained the situation and he said to them that he has a right to speak, he has a right to speak. And the Prophet of Allah then he said to the companions, and he said to them, go on to such and such companion and ask them for a basket of dates and bring it as soon as possible. And tell them that I will return it afterwards. So the dates were brought and they were given to the Bedouin and the Bedouin went away. Now the Prophet of Allah was teaching us a lesson there. He taught us a lesson not to get angry, to control anger, and to be honest in our dealings. Nowadays we lose our anger very, very easily. We lose our temper very, very easily. And the Prophet of Allah he had this character. He had this character where he had this patience inside him, he had this sabr inside him. And so whenever you hear about the life of the Prophet of Allah, whenever you hear a hadith, a waqiyah, something that happens in the past, don't just think of it as a story. This is something, a mistake that we made. Oh, it's a nice story. Yeah, an interesting story, wasn't it? No. If a story has been related to us and passed down through 1400 years of the life of the Prophet of Allah, it's been passed down through any of the pious companions, any of the Muslim Qur'an, whatever has happened, then stories have been passed down to generation to generation to generation for us to learn something from it. Not so much as it's just a good bedtime story that I can tell the kids and the kids go, oh, that was a nice story, Dad. No, we should learn from these. And here we are learning in this particular event that person had the right to complain. And the Prophet of Allah was the ultimate authority at the time. Like I said earlier on, he didn't get angry. He didn't even say, well, okay, let me go and check whether the dates are. Maybe they were there. Maybe he didn't see them properly. Maybe he didn't go to the right place. Maybe he didn't check it out. He didn't get angry and maybe thinking to himself, oh, I asked somebody to put the dates there. They didn't put the dates there. He didn't investigate all of that. He said to this person, you are right. You have a right to speak. And so he let this person speak. And so the Prophet of Allah had this perfect character. And it's a character that we need to analyze, we need to look at. Sayyidina Imam Ghazali has told us about a perfect character. And each of these things that I'm going to mention to you, every single one of them, the Prophet of Allah is a perfect example. Sayyidina Imam Ghazali said the embodiment of a good character is that person who is the most modest, he does not harm anybody, he performs righteous deeds, speaks the truth, he speaks little, is habitual of practicing good deeds, presents himself for mistakes as much as possible, avoids useless speech, is righteous, dignified, tolerant, content with the will of Allah, thankful, soft-hearted, of pure character and affection. He should not be the one who curses, swears, backbites, is hasty, bears malice, stingy and jealous. Rather, he should be cheerful, and he should love and hate only for the sake of Allah, and be pleased and displeased with someone for the sake of Allah. So many things I mentioned there. So many characteristics I mentioned there. But each and every one of those characteristics, that's something that we need to focus on. Do we have malice inside us? Do we hate each other? Do we fall out with each other? Do we get angry with each other? You hear many, many stories of two brothers that don't speak to each other. And 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and they don't speak to each other. And you ask someone, why have you fallen out with your brother? Why are you not speaking with your brother? And you know what happens? In most cases he has to think, because he can't remember. And then he thinks, he didn't invite me to his daughter's wedding. That's why we've done it. Or he didn't consider my daughter when he was getting his son married. He didn't do it. Or because of that, the two brothers are not speaking with each other. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And what happens is when one brother dies, the other brother is sitting there crying. He's sitting there crying. This is not what our deen teaches. Our deen teaches us to forgive each other, to bring ties together. And the Prophet of Allah, in his whole life, he told us to bring these ties together, to unite the Muslims together. not fall out with each other, don't hold malice with each other. And nowadays what has happened is that as our houses have got higher, they say as the walls have got higher, our houses have got smaller. That we don't forgive each other anymore. Because we think we made it, I've got enough now, I've got enough power, I've got enough wealth, I've got enough status. I don't need to forgive anybody. Why should I forgive him? He's younger than me. Why should I forgive him? He's weaker than me. Why should I forgive him? He's poorer than me. We won't forget anybody. We won't forgive anybody. But Ya Allah, please forgive me. Ya Allah, please forgive me. But I won't forgive you. I won't forgive you. I won't forgive you. But Ya Allah, please forgive me. What is this? Is this how we should be? We expect Allah Azza wa Jalla to forgive all our shortcomings, all the mistakes and all the sins that we have done. But we won't forgive each other. And this is something that we need to realize. That if you want to celebrate the life of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you want to show it, then you're not just showing the love of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam by attending the Julus once a year. The love of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not by going to the Masjid al-Malaz and staying up all night in the Lat Wali. The love of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not just by going to people's houses and having medals. The love of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a full-time job, 365 days a year, all of your life. If you want to love the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you need to do something about it. A pious predecessor, he said, that how do I know if I'm a mu'min? How do I know if I'm a true believer? The question was asked. We should ask this question, how do I know? And he got the reply that will be when you love Allah. That will be when you love Allah. Then he asked the question, how do I know? How do I know if I love Allah? I can say it. I can say I love Allah, but how do I know? And the pious predecessor said this will be when you love the Prophet of Allah. Now the next question is the important one. The next question is the very important one. How do I know if I love the Prophet of Allah? We all claim. We all claim that we are lovers. We all claim that we love the Prophet of Allah, but how do we know? Is it just a saying? Is it just a nara? Is it just carrying a flag? Is it just walking on the streets? Is it just on the loudspeaker doing the nara? Is this what it is? The reply was given. This will be when you obey his orders. Follow his sunnah. Love the people who love him and hate the people who hate him. Now, do we obey the orders of the Prophet of Allah? Do we follow his sunnah? Do we love the people who love him? Because the love of the Prophet of Allah is a unique love. You know, the love of the Prophet of Allah is like any other love. It's not like any other love. When someone loves someone that you love, you become jealous of them. When someone loves someone that you love, you become jealous of that person. But when it comes to loving the Prophet of Allah, if someone loves the Prophet of Allah, you love that person as well. You love that person as well because he loves the Prophet of Allah. But do we follow? Do we obey? Do we adopt his sunnah in our lives? This is the question that we need to ask. We claim, we make these claims that we love the Prophet of Allah, but do we obey him? Easy commands he's given. Pray 5 times a day and fast in the month of Ramadan. How many times did the Prophet of Allah give us that command? How many times? In the final khutbah he also said it as well. Fast and pray 5 times a day. We claim to love. Do we pray? We claim to love. Do we fast in the month of Ramadan? You know, there's something that nobody can say, oh, I didn't know that. You know, you get a 6-year-old child here, a 7-year-old child here, an 8-year-old child here, and you say to that child, do you know the fiqh of inheritance? He will say, no. Obviously, it's very hard, it's very difficult. But grab any 7-year-old child and say, do you know about namaz? And he'll say, yeah, I know that namaz is fard. No Muslim does not know that namaz is not fard upon them. So the question is, why we don't read it? Is there anybody here that says, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know that namaz was not fard. That's fard. I didn't realize, sorry, I didn't realize, oh, I'll make an intention from today to do it. We all know it. So what is our excuse? And this is something that we need to look at. If we claim to love the Prophet of Allah, then we need to follow him. We need to obey him. We need to be proud of who we are, proud that we are Muslims, that Allah has blessed us. That we are the ummah of the Prophet of Allah. That we have this blessing. And we need to be proud of it and show it, not be afraid of it. Not make excuses about, oh, I can't read Salah because of this, because of that. And what has happened, my dearest brothers, is that our deen our love for the Prophet of Allah, our adopting the Sunnah, has become a hobby. It's become a hobby. And what is a hobby? I'll tell you what a hobby is. A hobby is something that you do if you've got time. Some of the brothers here that know me know that I like working on cars. I bought a car 6 years ago to restore. And in the last 6 years, I've not even spent one day on it because it's my hobby. I've got time. And when I get time, inshallah, I'll work on the car, inshallah. Well, that's what's happened with our deen. Our deen has become our hobby. We've got time, we'll read our namaz. Not got time, doesn't matter. We've got time, we'll read the Quran. Not got time, doesn't matter. We've got time, we'll fast. We'll look at, when you know when the month of Ramadan comes, we'll look at our work schedule. Oh, I'll be doing overtime this month. Oh, I won't be able to fast all 30 days this month because I've got overtime, I've got this, I'm going to be doing this. And we make all the excuses in advance. And so our deen has become our hobby. And how can Muslims be successful if the deen is their hobby? Deen is something that you've got time. If I've got time, I'll read my namaz. If I've got time, never mind. If I've got time, I'll come to the masjid. If not, then it doesn't matter. When it comes to paying out zakat, when it comes to performing our hajj, again we say, well, you know what, I'll do my kitchen extension first. I'll get the quality rebuilt back home first. I'll get my daughters married first. Hajj is put upon you today. The Prophet of Allah said that if Hajj is put upon you, and you do not perform the Hajj, then you run the risk of dying without your Iman. You run the risk of dying without your Iman. And the Prophet of Allah actually goes on to say, he says, it is up to you whether you want to die as a Christian or die as a Jew. So I'm imploring you today, that if Hajj is put upon you, make the intention today. That if you have the money, if Hajj has been put upon you, make the intention today, perform the Hajj as soon as possible. This is what our deen is teaching us. And in that example that we saw that the Prophet of Allah controlled his anger. The Prophet of Allah said that the strong person is not he who can throw his opponent to the ground. The Prophet of Allah said that the strong person is he who can control his temper. You may be strong, you may have hard, you can pick me up and throw me down, but can you control your temper? And what happens if we don't control our temper, then all sorts of things can happen. There's an instance once, many years ago. A person is at work, he has a hard time at work. He comes home. His wife starts arguing with him because the kid's been crying all day. They get into an argument, husband and wife. The child's still crying in the background. The husband picks up the child by the ankles. Picks up the child by the ankles and starts hitting his wife with the child. And the child dies. Why? Because he lost his temper. Why? Because he lost his temper. We need to learn to control our temper. And make sure that what we do is correct. Because if we cannot control our temper, then everything will go wrong. And the Prophet of Allah is that exact perfect character. Allah Azza wa Jalla said in the Quran, and indeed you possess exemplary character. Surah Al-Qalam, verse number 4. And so this is, if we look at the character of the Prophet of Allah, how he dealt with people. He said that when he went to dive, and when he went to dive there, before the migration to Medina, the Prophet of Allah went to dive. And when he went to dive, he went there, and he invited them to the deen of Islam. And he went to some influential people's houses. But instead of listening to him, instead of accepting his word, they got angry with him and pushed him out of the street. And the children, he got the children of the town, got rocks and stones and started throwing them at the Prophet of Allah. And it said that the Prophet of Allah, his blood came down from his forehead, his body, and went down his body, and his blessed sandals, the blood stuck to his feet and the sandals, and they stuck the sandals to his feet. And as he was coming out of the town, and he sat down to rest, he looked above him and there was a cloud there, protecting him from the sun. And Hazrat Jibreel came to him and said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you wish, Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you the authority. I mentioned authority further on. Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you the authority and the power. Give the command. Give the command, and the two mountains that are covering the city will crush and kill all these people. Just remember now, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from this time people have thrown stones at him. People have persecuted him. people would call him all sorts of names and cursed him. You know when you are hurt, you know when you're in pain, then that time you want to take revenge. Yeah, because that's the peak moment. Later on when you calm down, maybe you don't, but that moment you don't think straight. But even at that time, the Prophet of Allah said to them, no. No, because from that offspring, inshallah, there will be Muslims. So even at that time, when he had the opportunity, he didn't take revenge. And this is also a characteristic that we need to learn. Sometimes what happens is you want to take revenge, but you can't. Because you're not strong enough. You're not powerful enough. You're not wealthy enough. Whatever it is, the true test of your character is if you can take revenge and you don't take revenge. Taking revenge is easy. The question is can you control yourself at that time? And the famous incident when the Prophet of Allah, the Muslims conquered Makkah. When they went into Makkah, everybody in the whole city of Makkah was scared. They went and hid in their houses because they realized that this person, the Prophet Muhammad, this is the person that we have persecuted. This is the person that we have abused. This is the person that we threw rubbish on. This is the person that we caused all sorts of trouble on. This is the person whose family we had killed, we had martyred. Today he is conquering Makkah. Today we've got nowhere to run. And they all hid in the houses. But the Prophet of Allah forgave them all. And when the historians read about that, when the historians read about the conquest of Makkah, they are shocked. They're amazed at the character of the Prophet of Allah at that time. At that time when people were in front of him, that had killed his family, that had martyred his family, that had killed his blessed uncle, they were in front of him. Then people were in front of him that had ripped out the liver of his blessed uncle and chewed it. They were in front of him. Imagine if you were in front of someone that had done something like that to your father, or to your uncle, or to your relatives, and you now had the opportunity. With a blink of an eye, they could have had their heads chopped off. But no, even at that time, the Prophet of Allah showed mercy. So if you want to learn something from the life of the Prophet of Allah, if you want to learn something, then learn his character. Learn his character. Learn how he controlled himself. Learn how he was kind. Learn how he was gentle. Learn how he was a father. Learn how he was a friend. Learn how he was an authority. Have you dealt with these situations? And if you want to have a beautiful life, then look at that. As Muslims today, we are failing because we are not following the sunnah of the Prophet of Allah. And every single household is having problems. And the Prophet of Allah said it, and I've mentioned this many times. In his final khutbah, he said, I'll leave you two things. I'll leave you these two things. Follow them, you will never go astray. The Quran and my way. The Quran and my way. Now what is the Quran in our houses? You know what to think? Blessed are those people that open the Quran every day. The rest goes around to think, you know what, I think it's in that room on top of that shelf. Maybe on that shelf, but I think it's on that shelf. If that is what's happening, that's something that we need to think about. You know, there's a person, he did a khatam in a house. And he called the imam sahab. And he called all the people like people call people. And after the khatam, the guests were leaving one by one. And as the guests were leaving, the host took them to the door and then came back, which is normal. Then the last guest was the imam sahab. He stayed to the end. The last guest was the imam sahab. And when the second to last guest was leaving, the host, he put some money on a table. He put some money on a table. And he went to the door. And as he was coming back, the imam sahab got up to leave. So he didn't come back into the room completely. The imam sahab was leaving. And the imam sahab, he saw through the door and he left. When the host came in, he looked at the table, the money wasn't there. So he thought to himself, you know what? I put the money there. The last person here was the imam sahab. It must be the imam sahab. The imam sahab must have stole this money. And for then what happened was, because he didn't have any proof, he couldn't say anything. But in his mind, he thought to himself, the imam sahab is guilty of stealing this money. So what did he do? He would not give salam to the imam sahab. If he saw the imam sahab coming down the street, he would go to the other side of the road. 12 months passed like this. And after 12 months, when the khatam was happening again, people said to him, "Oh, you need to call the imam sahab." He said, no, I don't want to call. No, you should call him, you should call him. So I took pressure. He ended up calling the imam sahab to the khatam. And when the imam sahab came to the khatam, The Imam Sahib said to him, look, for the last 12 months you've not given me salam, what have I done wrong? For 12 months you've not given me salam, for 12 months I've seen you go to the other side, I don't know what you've done wrong. And the host, he said, that the second to last guest, when he was leaving, I put money on the table. And when I came back, the money was not there. You were the only person that was there. You must have taken the money. The Imam Sahib started to cry. The Imam Sahib started to cry, and the host, now you know why he's crying? Why? Because he's guilty. He's crying because he's guilty. But the Imam Sahib realized, and he said, don't you think I'm crying because I'm guilty? I'll tell you why I'm crying. When you opened the door, the wind blew, and the money was falling off the table. So I picked up the money and I put it in your Quran, and I put the Quran back on the shelf. You have not opened the Quran for the last 12 months. And when they opened the Quran, the money was there. Is this happening in our house? That the only time the Quran is opened is in the blessed month of Ramadan? Or are we even worse than that? That the only time the Quran is opened is when someone passes away? Or are we even worse than that? That we say when someone passes away, we get somebody else. Madrasa, you read the Quran for us. Is this what we become? And then we wonder, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Quran in my way, follow them, you will never go astray. When it comes to the Sunnah, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we don't know anything about it. What is the Sunnah? Why should we follow the Sunnah? We ask too many questions. Tell me why I should use miswak. Tell me why I should grow a beard. Tell me why I should be what in Imam Ashif. And yet we claim to love. We claim to love. Lovers just follow, they don't ask questions. Sayyidina Hazrat Umar Farooq, he's sitting on a camel, he's the Amir al-Mu'mineen at this time. And as he's sitting on the camel, he does this. Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, what are you doing? And he said, I saw the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was going past this very spot. He did what I just did. And I'm doing it because the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it. What's the logic in that? What's the logic in that? The companion said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, there's a tree here. And when the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was with us, that tree was small. And when the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was with us, the branches were sticking out. And the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam lowered his head, his blessed head, because if he didn't, the branches would have hit his blessed head. Now the tree is all the way up there. It is a big tree now. There is no need to lower your head. Amir al-Mu'mineen said to Hazrat Umar Farooq, he said, I do not care whether the tree is there or the tree is there. All I know is that my Aqah did it and I will do it. Nowadays we ask too many questions. Why? 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 If you claim to love, you don't ask why. I'm just going to give you an example to finish with. A person, he claims to love his mother. And he tells everybody, I love my mother. He wears badges saying, I love my mother. He's got posters on his window saying, I love my mother. He's got posters in his car saying, I love my mother. Yeah? And one day mom says, Beta, can you take the rubbish out? I got time, mom. I'm too busy. One day, the mother says, Beta, can you do this? Can you do that? He said, no, I can't. Beta, can you don't go there? Can you go here? He said, no, I can't. And he never listens to his mother. Yeah, he tells everybody, I love my mother. If a person says, I love my mother, and doesn't listen to her, what would you say about that person? You see, he's a fool. He's a hypocrite. He says he loves, but he doesn't listen to him. Isn't that the same with those that we say we love, but we don't listen? We say we love the Prophet of Allah, but we don't listen to him. We say we love the Prophet of Allah, but we don't follow him. You know, the youngsters that are here today, even the elders that are here today, you probably will know more about cricket, you know more about football, you know more about politics, you know more about concerts, you know more about singers than you know about the Prophet of Allah. Isn't that sad? If I was to ask the youngsters here to name me 10 footballers, they could do it. 10 cricketers, you could do it. 10 film stars, you could do it. 10 singers, astaghfirullah, you could do it. 10 politicians, you could probably do it. But if I ask the same people in this room to name me those 10 companions that were guaranteed paradise, could we do it? Can we name 10 companions of the Prophet of Allah? Can we name 10 prophets? We claim to be Muslims, we claim to be lovers, we claim to follow, but we know little about our deen. And then we wonder why. Why we got problems? Hi mere bache, hi mere bibi, hi this, hi that. We've got all these things going on. I'll give you two things. Follow them, you will never go astray. The Quran and my way. The Quran and my way. Because we're not following this, then we're facing all the problems that we have. So in this month of Milad, when you attend these gatherings, when you're here to develop the love, the kalam that you listen to, these kalam that you listen to, why are they there? To develop that love. Why are these gatherings there? To develop that love. Because loving the Prophet of Allah is part of our iman. But loving the Prophet of Allah is not just kalams, not just julus, not just knowledge, not just all of these things. Loving is to follow. Loving is to obey. Loving is to respect. Loving is to understand. Blindly. Blindly. A strong statement to me, but a true lover, he blindly loves. When you see people who love people, they don't look at the negative, they only look at the positives. How many of us have read a seerah of the Prophet of Allah? How many have read his life? How many of us have read the sacrifice that he made for us? How many people have read the dua that he made for the Ummah of the Prophet of Allah? We don't. So this is something that we need to do. Yes, attend these gatherings. Yes, attend the Jews. Yes, recite the Naat. Yes, listen to the Naat. But also, nurture that love for the Prophet of Allah in your heart. And understand that he is our perfect example. And if you want to love him, you need to obey him. If you want to love him, you need to follow him. So my humble request to you is that during this blessed month of Ramadan, adopt the Quran and adopt the Sunnah of the Prophet of Allah. And don't be afraid of it. Don't be ashamed of it. And don't ask questions why. Why should I grow a beard? Why should I wear a mamashi? Why should I do these things? You know, in every Sunnah of the Prophet of Allah, I'm going to finish with this now. In every Sunnah of the Prophet of Allah, there is wisdom. Every single Sunnah. Maybe we don't understand. Maybe we don't understand. But there's wisdom in everyone. But I'm going to give you the wisdom of this. I'm going to give you the wisdom of this today. You know when you've got this on your face, people don't invite you to nightclubs. They don't invite you to places where alcohol is being served or drugs are being given. They don't invite you to these places. What kind of invites do you get? You get invites to Mahdi Malads, to Yarishis, to Ishtamars, to Jalsa, to Nisa. You get invitations to the masjid. You know this is a weapon against shaitan. This is a weapon against shaitan. Shaitan knows I can't invite this person to a nightclub, right? I can't invite him to a place with alcohol and shisha and all these sort of things that happen. No, I can't do this now. And every day when you get up and you look at yourself in the mirror, you think to yourself, you know what, I've got this sunnah on my face, I need to respect it. I need to respect this sunnah. And every day, this is one sunnah that other sunnah you have to do something. I can be asleep and I'm getting the reward of this sunnah. So learn the sunnah, adopt the sunnah. During this month of Ramadan, please attend these gatherings. But don't attend these gatherings just for entertainment. Attend these gatherings with an aim that I'm going there to develop the love of the Prophet of Allah in my heart. I want to nurture that love. I want to increase that love. I want to get closer to my Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I want to get closer to him. I want to understand him. I want to live my life like him. I want to admire and respect him. And that is why you should come to these gatherings. I've been told that the time is very, very short today. I pray to Allah Azza wa Jalla, if I've said anything wrong, may Allah Azza wa Jalla forgive me. And I pray to Allah Azza wa Jalla, Allah give me and you the tawfiq and the ability to think about what I said. During this blessed month of Ramadan, we should attend these gatherings to develop the love in our heart for the Prophet of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. In developing that love, we need to follow and adopt the Sunnah of the Prophet of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Ameen. Sallu ala al-Nabi.